The year was 1191. The Third Crusade, a holy endeavor steeped in blood and fervent prayer, clawed its way across the sun-scorched lands of Levant. Under the relentless gaze of a merciless sun, the armored legions of Christendom, led by kings and zealots, marched towards their destiny, their hearts aflame with divine purpose and the promise of salvation. Yet, for some, the holy war was merely a backdrop, a grand, brutal stage upon which far older, far darker dramas were destined to unfold. Sir Kaelen, a knight of the Teutonic Order, was a man forged in the crucible of faith and steel. His face, weathered by countless campaigns, bore the grim lines of a warrior who had witnessed too much of humanity's capacity for both cruelty and devotion. He was a man of unwavering conviction, his sword arm guided by God, his spirit unyielding. But even Kaelen, with all his piety and battle-hardened resolve, was unprepared for blasphemy that awaited them in the desolate waste beyond Acre. His company, a detachment of 20 seasoned knights and a handful of weary squires, had been tasked with a seemingly straightforward mission: to scout a forgotten caravan route, rumored to offer a quicker passage through the arid interior, avoiding the more heavily fortified coastal roads. It was a perilous journey, fraught with the dangers of Saracen patrols, treacherous terrain, and the ever-present threat of thirst. But Kaelen's men were veterans, accustomed to hardship, their faith a shield against despair. Days bled into weeks, each marked by the monotonous rhythm of marching under a sky that seemed to mock their suffering. The landscape was a canvas of endless sand and jagged rock, punctuated by the skeletal remains of ancient, forgotten settlements. The heat was a living entity, pressing down upon them, stealing their breath, baking their armor until it seared their flesh. Water rations dwindled, and the men's spirits, once buoyed by zeal, began to fray at the edges. It was young brother Thomas, a novice scribe whose delicate constitution was ill-suited for the rigors of war, who first spotted it, a shimmering anomaly on the horizon, a distortion in the heat haze that seemed to defy the laws of the desert. "Sir Kaelen," he croaked, his voice hoarse with thirst and awe. "A structure in the wastes." Kaelen, shading his eyes, squinted into the blinding glare. Indeed, a colossal edifice, unlike any he had ever seen, rose from the undulating dunes. It was not a fortress, nor a temple of man. Its architecture was alien, a bizarre fusion of organic curves and sharp, crystalline angles, crafted from material that seemed to absorb a harsh sunlight rather than reflect it. It pulsed with faint, almost imperceptible violet luminescence, a ghostly beacon in the heart of desolation. It was a monument to something ancient, something utterly beyond their understanding. Hope, a fragile, desperate thing, surged through the weary company. Perhaps it was a hidden oasis, a forgotten outpost. They pressed on, their exhaustion momentarily forgotten, drawn by the irresistible pull of the unknown. As they drew closer, the scale of the structure became terrifyingly apparent. It was immense, dwarfing the surrounding landscape, its sheer size a testament to a power that predated their god, their empires, their very concept of civilization. The entrance was a gaping maw, a perfectly smooth archway that seemed to have been carved from solid shadow. No doors, no gates, just an invitation into the abyss. Kaelen, ever cautious, ordered his men to form a defensive perimeter. He, along with his most trusted lieutenant, Sir Gareth, and the trembling brother Thomas, ventured inside. The air within was cold, a stark contrast to the searing heat outside, and carried a faint metallic scent like old blood and ozone. The interior was a vast, echoing chamber, its walls adorned with intricate carvings that depicted scenes of cosmic horror, star-spanning entities, beings of pure energy, and rituals of unimaginable cruelty. The carvings were not merely etched. They seemed to writhe, to shift, to pulse with a faint, inner light, as of alive. Thomas, his face pale with terror, began to recite prayers, his voice a thin, reedy sound in the oppressive silence. In the center of the chamber, bathed in the violet glow that permeated the structure, stood a pedestal, and upon the pedestal, a reliquary. It was not of gold or silver, but of polished, obsidian-like material, shaped like a human heart, but with an unsettling number of facets, each reflecting a distorted image of the chamber. It pulsed with a rhythmic, almost biological beat, a low thrum that vibrated through their very bones. And from within it, a faint, almost imperceptible whisper seemed to emanate, a chorus of voices speaking in a language that was not of this world, yet resonated deep within their primal fears. Kaelen, his hand instinctively gripping the hilt of his sword, felt a profound sense of wrongness. This was not a holy relic. This was something else, something ancient and malevolent. Gareth, ever the pragmatist, saw only a potential treasure, a relic of immense power. He reached for it, his fingers trembling with avarice. "Stop!" Kaelen roared, but it was too late. Gareth's armor hand closed around the reliquary. A searing, violet light erupted from the object, engulfing Gareth in its unholy embrace. He screamed, a sound of pure, unadulterated agony, as his flesh began to melt, to flow, to reform into something utterly monstrous. His armor fused with his skin, his bones twisted and elongated, his face stretched into a grotesque parody of human form. He became a living statue of agony, his eyes, once filled with avarice, now burning with an infernal violet light. Kaelen, horrified, drew his sword, but the creature that was once Gareth was beyond salvation. It let out a guttural shriek, a sound that tore at the very fabric of their sanity, and lunged at them. Kaelen, with a desperate prayer on his lips, met its charge, his holy blade clashing against its newly formed, crystalline claws. The fight was brutal, a desperate dance between faith and blasphemy. The creature was strong, unnaturally so, its movements fluid and unpredictable. Kaelen fought with the fury of a man possessed, his every strike fueled by righteous anger and a burgeoning terror. Brother Thomas, meanwhile, had collapsed, his mind shattered by the horror he had witnessed. He babbled incoherently, his eyes wide and unseeing, his soul lost to the abyss. Kaelen, seeing his comrade fall, knew they were in dire straits. He could not defeat this abomination alone. He had to retreat. He had to warn the others. With a desperate maneuver, he disengaged from the creature, his armor dented, his body bruised. He grabbed the unconscious Thomas and dragged him toward the entrance, the creature's unholy shrieks echoing behind them. They burst out into blinding sunlight. The desert air a welcome balm after the suffocating cold of the reliquary. He rallied his remaining men, their faces pale with fear, their eyes wide with questions. He explained, his voice hoarse, the words tasting like ash in his mouth. He spoke of the alien structure, the grotesque carvings, the pulsating reliquary, and the monstrous transformation of Gareth. Disbelief wore with terror in the eyes of his men. Some wanted to flee, to abandon this cursed place. Others, their faith shaken but not broken, demanded to know what they faced. Kaelen, his resolve hardening, knew they could not simply abandon this blasphemy. It was a threat not just to their lives, but to their very souls, to the sanctity of their God. He ordered his men to prepare for battle. They would not flee. They would confront this evil, whatever its nature. As twilight descended, painting the desert sky in bruised shades of purple and orange, the creature that was once Gareth emerged from the reliquary. It was larger now, its form more defined, its crystalline skin shimmering with an unholy light. It was accompanied by several smaller, shadowy entities, indistinct and fleeting, that seemed to coalesce from the very sand itself. The air grew heavy, charged with a palpable malevolence. Kaelen, his sword raised, led the charge. "For God in Jerusalem!" he roared, his voice ringing with defiance. The battle was a maelstrom of steel and shadow, of fervent prayers and unholy shrieks. The knights, though brave, were outmatched. The creatures were relentless, their attacks precise and brutal. Kaelen fought with grim determination, his holy blade carving to the shadowy entities, but they seemed to reform, to multiply, their numbers endless. He saw his men fall one by one, their faith unable to shield them from the blasphemy. He saw their souls, their very essences, being drawn into the pulsating reliquary, which now floated above the alien structure, a dark, hungry heart beating in the desert sky. He realized in the true nature of the reliquary. It was not merely a container, but a conduit, a parasitic entity that fed on life, on faith, on despair. As the last of his men fell, Kaelen found himself alone, facing the monstrous form of Gareth and the swirling vortex of shadowy entities. His armor was shattered, his body bleeding, his sword arm-heavy. He was at the precipice of despair, his faith wavering under the relentless assault of the unholy. He looked up at the pulsating reliquary, its violet glow intensifying, and understood. This was not a battle he could win with steel and faith alone. This was a battle for his very soul. He closed his eyes, a desperate prayer forming on his lips, not for victory, but for understanding. And in that moment of profound vulnerability, a vision pierced his mind. Images of ancient civilizations, of beings who worshipped this entity, offering sacrifices, gaining power, only to be consumed in the end. He saw the reliquary, not as a source of power, but as a prison, a trap for the unwary, a parasite that promised everything and delivered only oblivion. He opened his eyes, a new resolve burning within them. He would not be consumed. He would not be another offering. He would break the cycle. He saw a faint, almost imperceptible fissure in the crystalline skin of the creature that was once Gareth, a tiny crack in its monstrous facade. It was a weakness, a vulnerability. With a final, desperate surge of strength, Kaelen lunged, not at the creature's heart, but at the fissure. His holy blade, imbued with the last vestiges of his faith, plunged deep into the crystalline skin. The creature shrieked, a sound of pure agony, its form flickering, destabilizing. The shadowy entities recoiled, dissolving into wisps of sand. But the reliquary, floating above, pulsed with renewed vigor, its violet glow intensifying, drawing the creature's essence into itself. Kaelen realized his mistake. He had merely wounded the host. The parasite remained. He had to destroy the reliquary itself. But how? He looked around the desolate landscape, his eyes scanning for anything, any sign, any weapon. His gaze fell upon the unconscious form of Brother Thomas, still babbling incoherently, but clutched in his hand was a silver-bound journal, its ancient symbols now glowing with a faint, protective light. Kaelen remembered the incantations, the forbidden knowledge contained within its pages. He had dismissed them as mere superstition, but now, in the face of true blasphemy, he understood their power. He crawled towards Thomas, grabbing the journal. He flipped through its pages, his eyes scanning the arcane symbols, searching for a counterspell, an exorcism, anything that could sever the connection. He found it, a complex series of glyphs and a guttural chant, a ritual designed to banish entities of pure energy, to sever their ties to the material plane. With the creature that was once Gareth slowly reforming, its crystalline skin crackling with malevolent energy, Kaelen began to chant. His voice, hoarse and trembling, resonated with newfound power, the ancient words echoing through the desert. The reliquary pulsed violently, its violet glow flickering, its unholy beat faltering. The creature shrieked, its form contorting, its crystalline skin cracking and shattering. The desert floor began to tremble, the sand swirling into miniature vortexes. The sky above them darkened, a storm brewing from nothingness. The reliquary, its pulsating beat growing weaker, began to descend, slowly, inexorably, toward the alien structure. Kaelen continued to chant, his voice growing stronger, his faith renewed, his with a final, unyielding, deafening shriek. The reliquary slammed into the alien structure, a blinding flash of violet light erupting from the impact. The structure groaned, its organic curves and crystalline angles fracturing, crumbling into dust. The ground beneath Kaelen buckled, throwing him to his knees. He shielded his eyes, the light too intense, too pure. When he opened them again, the alien structure was gone, reduced to a pile of shimmering ash. The reliquary was gone. The creature that was once Gareth was gone. The shadowy entities were gone. The desert was silent once more, save for the whistling wind. The storm had vanished, the sky clear, the stars beginning to emerge. Cold and indifferent, Kaelen, battered and bruised, but alive, crawled towards the unconscious form of Brother Thomas. He checked his pulse, a faint but steady beat. Thomas was alive. His mind, though scarred, would heal. Kaelen looked at the silver-bound journal. Its pages now blank, its symbols faded. Its power had been expended, its purpose fulfilled. He stood alone in the vast, silent desert, the ashes of the alien structure shimmering faintly in the moonlight. He had faced a blasphemy, an ancient evil that threatened to consume not just their lives, but their very souls. He had fought, not for land or glory, but for the sanctity of life, for the purity of faith. He had won, but the victory was a somber one, bought with the lives of his men, etched with the scars of unimaginable.
If you have a strange experience or a story you can't explain, leave it in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this story, make sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel. There are many more stories waiting to be told. Until the next video, stay safe.